The Nintendo Switch. I love this little console, but I've got to say it is starting to show its age, which is why I'm so glad to see rumors that Nintendo is planning on a mid-cycle upgrade that is akin to PS4 to PS4 Pro. And what's being dubbed as the Switch Pro is said to come with a bigger Samsung OLED display, as reported by Bloomberg sometime earlier this month. Basically, it's going to be 7 inches, 720p resolution, no doubt to further conserve battery. I would have loved to see 1080p, but the extra graphical power required to render games at a higher resolution combined with the higher pixel density would mean a reduced battery life. I prefer to keep it at 720p if it means ultimately significantly better battery life. And not to mention that this being an OLED screen, the colors will pop more, there's going to be higher contrast. It's just going to be a better looking screen, even if the pixel density, because of that bigger size, is going to be diminished. I think it'll look fine at 720p at that portable level. Now, since then, Bloomberg has dug up some more information about the Switch, this time discussing its internal components, some of the updates that the chip is going to be receiving, alongside some rendering techniques that will all around improve graphics and performance. So here's this article by Takahashi Mochizuki and Ian King, whose headline reads, Nintendo to use new Nvidia graphics chip in 2021 Switch upgrade. So it's not just the bigger screen, they are going to improve the performance, and this upgraded Nvidia Core chip apparently is going to have better graphics and processing for a new Switch model planned for the year-end shopping season. It is rumored that this Switch console, this Switch Pro, is coming in time for holiday 2021. And the best news, I think, is that it will support NVIDIA's Deep Learning Super Sampling, also known as DLSS. This was something that I wondered in my previous video covering the OLED screen. I was wondering if the new NVIDIA chip would support this. And for those who want additional context for the kinds of benefits you can get out of DLSS, well, it says right here that it's a rendering technology that uses artificial intelligence to deliver higher fidelity graphics more efficiently. And down here, they detail this further. DLSS was first introduced as an image upscaling feature in 2018 and remains exclusive to NVIDIA graphics cards, specifically a lot of the newer models. And so what this allows is for essentially AI to fill in the gaps for when a game is dynamically trying to balance things like resolution and graphics and all of these different things. AI can step in there, and even though it's upscaling, it'll still look pretty damn close to the real thing. It's a very basic explanation. I don't know exactly how DLSS works, but as someone who has used it on his 3080 with a number of games, yeah, it's definitely a very advantageous thing. And, you know, it's certainly a nice coincidence that Nintendo happened to go with Nvidia, and that Nvidia is able to provide that tech for the upcoming refresh of Nintendo Switch. Anyone who's used DLSS on PC will no doubt know about the huge difference that AI rendering technique can make. So games like Cyberpunk 2077, for example, I can crank up the graphics and even use ray tracing, and with DLSS on, I'm able to get pretty good frame rates, but once I turn that off, frame rates just tank across the board. And so what this will mean for Nintendo Switch is that maybe the chip itself won't be the biggest step up in the world, but combined with DLSS, you're really going to be able to squeeze out a lot of performance and graphics. And Bloomberg even reports that games on Switch might actually be able to produce visuals at 4K quality when plugged into a TV with the help of DLSS. What I'm more excited about is the prospect of allowing people to choose between multiple graphics options, 4K 30 versus, 1080 60 FPS, or hell, if they find a way to somehow render at 4K 60, which might be a tough ask, but if they can do it, even better, but at least 1080 60 FPS. That's what I mainly hope DLSS is utilized for. Monster Hunter Rise, for example, is coming out soon, and I'd love to see that game rendered at 60 FPS on the Switch Pro. I would get that console in a heartbeat if existing games were updated in their performance. But on top of a better Nvidia chip, it's reported that the Switch Pro, or whatever it ends up being called, will have a better CPU and increased memory. Though when it comes to DLSS, it is reported that there's a caveat in that you do need additional new code to be added to games for it to utilize DLSS. So apparently the function will primarily be used to improve graphics on upcoming titles, though I imagine that developers will have the option to patch their games and update their games to support DLSS retroactively, and hopefully that'll mean existing games can be upgraded to run at higher fidelity, higher graphics, higher resolution, and higher frame rates. That would be amazing. It is once again reiterated that sources are saying that it'll be a 7-inch OLED screen versus the original Switch's 6 point something and the Switch Lite's 5.5, was it? It is absolutely going to be a significant difference, and what I'm suspecting is that they're going to fill out the borders. The original Switch has a pretty significant bezel, and if they can just stretch that screen out, they can take advantage of that real estate while keeping the Switch itself, you know, at a relatively similar size to the older model. As for price point, well, Bloomberg reported on what analysts had to say, and it's in line with what I expressed last time I talked about Switch Pro. Basically, it'll absolutely be offered at a higher price, no surprise there, and what people are foreseeing, what analysts are foreseeing, is that it'll be an increase of as much as $100, while $350 is possible, according to Bloomberg Intelligence's Matthew Canterman, stating $350 will increase the value proposition of the device, but I still think Nintendo can drive strong demand even at $400. They're probably not wrong on that front, though that will make it as expensive as PS5 digital and more expensive than Xbox Series S's $300 price tag. But then again, the Switch is such a popular console because of its hybrid nature and because of the fact that it's the only place you can play Nintendo games and other exclusive titles. I still think that at $400, they'd probably sell quite a number of units, especially with demand being so high, you know. But if they can get it down to $350, damn, that would be a hell of a value. And Nintendo is trying to find ways to lower that price. For example, the OLED panels that they're purchasing from Samsung, they're cheaper but less flexible alternatives. And Nintendo Switch doesn't really need a flexible display. That's more for smartphones. So this makes sense. Samsung had essentially a bunch of leftovers of these less flexible alternatives. And so Nintendo's going to buy those in bulk, and they're going to be a lot cheaper, and hopefully that'll help bring the price tag down. Though, because it is using the Switch Pro, a new upgraded Nvidia chipset, that might also contribute to driving up the price alongside the higher memory and the better CPU. So all in all, I think it isn't too far-fetched that a $400 price tag is the most likelihood, but we'll see. No doubt it will be between $350 and $400. Time will tell what decision Nintendo makes there. Do keep in mind, Nintendo does not tend to sell their consoles at a loss, so that might also further drive this point that it is likely $400 will end up being the final price tag. But it's all rumors and speculation. We'll find out later this year, I suppose. But until then, you know, I am excited about the prospects of Switch utilizing DLSS for both portable and TV mode, and seeing how that will enhance overall gameplay across the board and overall visuals, performance, everything. I really hope to see more games on Switch running at 60 FPS. And hopefully, you know, a lot of games that were ported over that were pretty demanding, you know, games like Doom and Witcher 3, hopefully they'll receive upgrades that will make them look better, perform better. Fingers crossed on that front. But this is, so far, everything we know about Switch Pro. Not a whole lot, and still rumors and reports, no official confirmation, but still fun to kind of, you know, speculate about this stuff for people who are Switch owners like myself who would love to see some kind of upgrade. Let me know in the comments below what your take is on this report by Bloomberg, on this idea of Switch having a 7-inch OLED screen and an upgraded graphics chip that utilizes DLSS. Are you excited about that? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.